Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. This video I am doing a recap of Game 2 of Jazz versus Clippers. This game was won by the Utah Jazz, which means that yes, the Clippers are down 0-2 once more. At least this time it's a tad bit more excusable because for the most part, the Jazz are considered a better team than the Mavericks, and more importantly than that, the Jazz have home court advantage, so they didn't lose. The Clippers did not lose these two games on their own home floor. Granted, Staples Center is not always the Clippers' home floor. But this game, the first half was very much in Utah's favor. I believe Donovan Mitchell had 27 or 30 in the first half, which is a lot of points to have in a half, in case you did not know. So that was a huge factor in why they got such a big lead. I think they had up to like a 25, 26 something point lead at one point. A lot of open threes, a lot of threes were dropping. And overall, this was a very offensive heavy game. If we look at the field goal percentage, the Jazz shot 55%, 51% from three on 39 attempts. And then the Clippers went 47% from the field and 37% from three on 30 attempts, so not quite as much. But the second half, however, it was a lot more in the Clippers' favor. Mostly to me, while there are a lot of things you can attribute to with what the Clippers did that helped them, a lot of it was Reggie Jackson, who had probably his best game of the playoffs and maybe one of the best games of his career. It's probably up there. But this game really was... the second half, it was a tale of two halves, because the second half, Reggie did what he did, but then also Donovan Mitchell was not killing it like he was in the first half, which is fine. He finishes this game with 37, so he finished with 10 or 7 points in the second half. His field goal percentage was amazing in the first half, so really just the second, he wasn't doing it as well, which is fine, because he still had a great game. He still had 37 points. He had 40-something in game one. And there's a couple things to walk away from with a couple of things to walk away from this game with, if I can phrase it properly. Donovan Mitchell's insanity. He continues to elevate himself in the playoffs, and I feel like he's kind of gotten this like Reggie Miller element to him, where you look at his regular season numbers and they're good, and he's recognized as one of the better players in the league, but really just like a pretty damn good player, maybe like a borderline all-NBA guy, but then come playoff time, completely different animal. Other than that series, I believe against the Rockets it was, unless I'm mistaken, because it's been a while. Other than that, he's been nothing short of flawless in the playoffs. That obviously the great first-round matchup versus the Thunder. What he did versus the Denver Nuggets, even though they did blow a 3-1 lead, his individual performance was amazing. And this series, or in the first round series versus Memphis, he averaged 30 points per game in 30 minutes. And in this game, 37, game one, 40-something. So he's just great in the playoffs. And it's kind of because of that elevation that I think when I start thinking about Donovan Mitchell, I really need to focus more on what he does in the playoffs and how different of a player he is under those circumstances, because really I ultimately view everything through the lens of the playoffs. So if a player is routinely underperforming in the playoffs, say Paul George, for example, I'm going to rank them worse amongst other players in the league, even if they do play well in the regular season. So I do need to have that opposite effect, and I'll take that into account. When I do, I'm probably going to do a top 50 at the end of this postseason, or postseason, just because it's very different now. There's a lot of changes that'll be made since the last time I did one like 2 years ago. Other than that, Paul George, he initially played real bad in this one. There was a point where he was 2 for 10 or 2 for 9. But gradually, especially in the second half, his offense came a lot better. He was getting to the line a lot. He got 2 different and ones on Rudy Gobert. Kawhi Leonard, on the other hand, only 39 minutes in this one. You could honestly convince me that you could have convinced me watching this game that he had 10 or he had 30. And he ended up having 21, so it was like right down the middle. But game one, he really did not have much of not that he didn't have an impact, but like his fingers or his blueprint. What's the expression? Like their blueprint was all over the game or whatever. Like, he didn't really seem like he had that much influence over what was actually happening in the game in game one, where he had foul trouble. This game, he also had a bit of foul trouble, but not to an extreme, and didn't really feel like he was doing that much either. Like, of course, he didn't play bad. I believe he had like 27 in game one. In game two, 21 on decent efficiency is not bad, but like, I'm expecting more than not bad from Kawhi Leonard, and we've gotten just not bad for the first two games. In fact, Paul George outplayed him in this game, and that says quite a bit. Outside of that, as I mentioned, Reggie Jackson, amazing performance from him. He especially came alive in the third quarter where he was getting a lot of floaters, some threes, really just getting offense however he wanted it. It seemed like the Jazz were just taking the approach of we're going to focus on Kawhi and PG, and in that, Reggie found himself a decent opportunity. Also, I do got to talk about Rudy Gobert defensively. 13 and 20 in this game. How many blocks did he end up having? Where is it? Where are the blocks? He had 3. They really have not been punishing him with the small ball lineups. Zubac ended up starting this game, but he still only played like 13 minutes, and Batum played a lot of power forward. Patrick Beverley played 21 minutes in this game as well and did not do much with it, but he did play. Also, I forgot to mention this in game one, DeMarcus Cousins minutes. I don't really know what Tyronn Lue is trying to accomplish with those. It's not really going bad or good. It's just kind of neutral. There's some defensive stuff that's gone in their favor and gone against it because of him. Offensively, he was pretty good at putting the ball in the basket. He took a dumb 3, but it was fine. But I don't really understand what exactly Tyronn Lue was actually trying to accomplish with that. I don't understand why Terrence Mann gets 1 minute in this game. But back to what I was saying about Rudy Gobert, they were still going to their small ball lineup for the most part, and they weren't really punishing him by making the outside shot. Whether it was Batum, who he did go 2 for 3, but he didn't really get that many looks. A lot of it was Patrick Beverley, who ended up being the one who was open. He wasn't making the outside jumpers. Marcus Morris, 4 for 11 from the field and 0 for 5 from 3. He was 1 for 8 for 3 in game one. So doesn't seem like he's been hitting the shots quite as much in this series. And if he's not going to do that, then you're not going to really harm Utah's defense. Royce O'Neal has done a very good job on Kawhi Leonard right now. He hasn't shut him down or anything, but as I said, Kawhi has not really been loud in his first 2 games, and I think part of that is in part to Royce O'Neal's defense, but it's also he just doesn't seem like he's going for it right now. So yeah, that's just an interesting thing. Joe Ingles, fantastic in this game, 7 for 10. He had 1 3 where as the Clippers were starting to make a bit of a run and then the Jazz kind of punched back. It was a 7-point game with like 4-ish minutes left. Joe Ingles just stepped into a 3 where I think Reggie Jackson brought help on somebody and just the seas parted for Ingles to take the 3. And it was just a very weird sequence, but Ingles made it and that gave them the deficit. And that's when it really started to feel like, yeah, the Jazz are probably going to win this game. And obviously they did. I also have to mention Jordan Clarkson. On that stretch where Donovan Mitchell was going off, whenever he wasn't scoring, it was Jordan Clarkson, specifically from outside. He had a back-to-back 3 sequence where both of those 3s were ridiculous. One was he pump faked, and Luke Kennard had him just stuck, and he chucked it up at the end of the buzzer, and it went in. And then after that, he took a 3 over, I don't remember who it was, but he took that one and it was very well contested. It just dropped like it was nothing. So he had a very good game. In game one, I was like a little bit like calm down just a tad bit on the shot selection. He was a little better in this game one, and he made in this game, and he made more of the shots. Georges Niang, I don't like that he's in the rotation for Utah. He doesn't really seem to do anything besides for hit open 3s, so wouldn't do that one. But other than that, you got also taken into consideration the fact that there's no Mike Conley, and the Jazz are up 2-0 right now. Also, last second, like literally last possession of this game for Utah, Paul George accidentally runs over Donovan Mitchell trying to do some off-ball action, and looks like Mitchell gets hurt. He shoots free throws after, and they went in, but he did not look good leaving the court. I don't know what the severity of that injury might end up being. He was holding his thigh. We're really just going to have to wait and see, and you got to hope that it's nothing that'll keep him out anytime or that will affect him in the series because, I mean, if he's out, even a few games, the series is done, even if the Jazz are up 2-0, because like their offense just will not be good enough to beat the Clippers without Donovan Mitchell. Like those games are they're just going to be over. That's just how it is. But assuming that he is healthy, then they should be perfect. Well, not perfectly fine. I still am going to pick the Clippers to win this series. But going down 0-2 again, it's not the best look in the world, even though the circumstances are much more understandable this time around. So Kawhi Leonard needs to wake up a little bit, not trying as much as you would like out of the gate, or at least not coming off of that way. So yeah, so that was that game. Looking forward to the next game in Los Angeles, because I do think this is going to be a really close series. And so far, both of these games have been very close, even if they've both gone in Utah's favor. So yeah, that's the end of this video. Bye-bye.